Minister, thanks for joining us. First up, the first fatality from this flooding declared today. It's been amazing, really, given the devastation that there haven't been lives lost, but that lucky run ended today.
Tragically, we've had the first reported death from a car that was swept away this morning. Police and emergency services have since found the vehicle, and unfortunately there was a man inside. He's unidentified at this stage, and obviously that process will take place now, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family of this gentleman. We obviously continue to express our strongest message that please, while the sun might be shining, it is still unsafe to go anywhere near the water. We just ask people to please stay away. This is a sad reminder of the danger that lies within those waters. And you're not only putting yourselves at risk and your family at risk, but you're also putting at risk those men and women that are out there trying to protect us. This is a time for us all to have the responsibility just to stay out of this water. This is a tragedy that is just so sad when we had thought that we were getting through this without any fatalities, but a timely reminder of the risks and the dangers that still persist.
Yeah, this fatality occurred in the Hawkesbury flood, very close to northwestern suburbs of Sydney. The waters there today have actually been rising, creating more flooding, more danger, even though the weather has been blue skies and warm temperatures.
Yeah, this is the thing that people need to understand is that while the rain might have stopped, it takes time for the water to dissipate, and as it gets through the topography of the land, in some areas it actually means that if there's narrow junctures for the water to get through, then where it's come from, then it actually means that these actual creeks and rivers start to rise, even though the sun's shining and the rain stopped. This is what people have to understand. There is still a real and present danger that persists while that water is still over roads, and you just do not need to risk it.
And this was the flooding also that the Prime Minister inspected from the air today. What perspective did the PM get from that helicopter visit, and what's he passed on to you about it?
Yeah, let's do the sheer scale of it. Obviously, to get a perspective from the air gives you the vast scale across the landscape, and not only homes that have been in, businesses that have been inundated, but also agricultural production, whether that be crops and also livestock. So to get that sort of perspective is one that will put into scale and the gravity of the recovery, and that's why we're moving very quickly to stand Shane Stone up to lead the recovery for us. He's done an outstanding job with the Northwest Queensland floods only a couple of years ago, where we lost 500,000 head of cattle. And we had homes and businesses destroyed. We're working through that, and he's done an outstanding job in making sure that recovery, in fact, has taken place to a standard where I think many of those people up there are very grateful of, and that's why we need someone with the experience to come in very quickly to support the Director General of EMA and to be able to support New South Wales in their recovery efforts.
Now, one of the critical problems at the moment is isolated communities, and you're trying to get foodstuff and even drinking water to them. How big is that challenge, and do New South Wales and other states affected have the appropriate resources so far?
Well, we're offering every resource, whether that be the Australian Defence Force or through Emergency Management Australia, EMA. We've been able to get 50 pallets across the Hawkesbury today into North Richmond. We think there's going to need more, and we're concerned about the speed in which the Hawkesbury may abate to allow more barges and obviously then the bridge to come back into function. So we've made an offer to Resilience New South Wales to provide more air support to drop more essential goods into North Richmond in particular, and other communities that are isolated. We obviously at the direction of Resilience New South Wales, but the Defence Forces also, at the request of New South Wales Government, provided 3 extra choppers this morning. And there will be a surge of ADF personnel tomorrow morning being deployed from bases, and also reservists from around the country that'll come in, and they'll surge up to around 700 over the coming days and weeks.
Now, you're pretty fortunate in that area to have the Richmond Air Force Base nearby. Is that not inundated at all? You're able to use that base for this support?
The last advice I had, Chris, was that the water was lapping up on the base, but it's not causing any operational concerns. So we're very fortunate that base will continue to be pivotal in our response in using those ADF assets, and obviously also the boots on the ground that'll give great comfort emotionally, but also physically to the immediate relief. And I think that's what you've got to appreciate. And what we learnt from the bushfires is that that comfort Australians get from knowing those men and women in khaki uniforms coming down the street there to help gives them great emotional comfort after going through some pretty distressing times. So it's not just physical, it's emotional support that I think many of these communities will get and help us in also supporting those isolated communities now.
Now, what about further north on the coast, the mid-north coast, the north coast of New South Wales? What's the situation there, and will there be ADF resources deployed there?
Yeah, that's probably where we'll start, Chris. I spoke to Pat Conahan, the member for Cowper, just an hour or so ago. He says that conditions are slightly easing. There's still a lot of water to move through there, but we think that that'll be the first part of New South Wales where deployment of ADF personnel will be able to make a real headway into the relief and recovery piece. So that's probably where we'll start, and then obviously we'll move our way through, and that's why we're prepared to surge from around 290 being deployed tomorrow up to probably 700, and that's complementing close to 1,000 personnel through New South Wales emergency services and interstate. You've got to understand it's a nationally coordinated approach that we bring in interstate support as well, and I thank all the other states for their support in helping New South Wales, who've been at the brunt of this, even though we've seen this actually affect every state. This is such the scale of the front that came through, or the multiple fronts that collided. Every state has had some flooding, even in my home state, and only a couple of kilometres from where I live in Queensland.
Jeepers, your title is Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management. With bushfires thrown in and pandemics, regional Australia in particular has had everything thrown at it in the past 12 months.
Mate, we keep on getting uppercuts, but I tell you what, we keep on standing up and swinging harder back. And you know what, when you look back and I reflect on the bushfires, the drought, the northwest Queensland floods and what's happened, we're coming out of, and the pandemic, we're coming out of this pandemic better than ever. Regional Australia is blossoming. This is a little bit of a setback, but you know what? I'm very confident about the future, and we'll clean up these communities and make sure they're looked after. But as a whole, despite what's thrown at us, I think the spirit of Australia is shown in regional Australia after the last couple of years of adversity that's thrown at us. And I'm proud to live in regional Australia and represent regional Australians, I can tell you.
Spot on. That spirit always shines through, regardless. Thanks so much for joining us, Minister.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, it was a good note to end that interview on, wasn't it, with David Littleproud talking about the resilience of regional Australia. We have a lot of viewers in regional Australia. It's always great to catch up with you. I met a whole lot of people in Moree and Tamworth last week who watch Sky News religiously. And not only do we on this channel try and make sure that politicians and governments and other agencies are focused on your issues and responding to the crises like you've confronted in the past 18 months, but I've got to tell you what, we are in full admiration of your resilience and that spirit and that optimism that is evident every day as you confront, as many people in regional Australia now confront, a really devastating flood on the back of all the rest of it. We'll keep you up to date with all those developments as usual.